Hey everybody, Tracy White here, T. Earl on the UE4 forums, and in this video I'm going to talk about my new deluxe options menu. That's broken. Sometimes. But it can work too. Alright, so what you see is that we have a camera move that focuses in on our pawn, and we can change the skin and the particle system on that ball. We can toggle the system on and off, and we can hit apply, which will apply any changes that you make to your ball pawn in the game. Alright, so a little complicated here. To show you what I did real quick. First, I made, so if you remember from all the other videos, we have our main ball pawn. And that does everything in the level. You know how it does the timer, it does the save game stuff, holds our ability to move, generates messages whenever you've ended the level on how you did compared to the stored good time. If you've done a better time, it stores it and all that. Alright, we're not going to touch that in our default level, because I think that'd be a little too overboard. So what I've done is I've made a ball setter. This ball setter blueprint is made up of the static mesh, a static mesh called that calls the ball's ball mesh, which is the exact same mesh as the ball pawn uses. And then of course there's also a particle system on it, and from the previous video we would assign one of those particle systems. So my defaults for this are obviously going to be this magic ball with the magic particle system on it. Alright, so in our graph, the only thing you see, there's nothing in the event graph, nothing in the construction script. The only thing I have on here are these variables, or this variable, particles on or off. Alright, that's it. So what I've done from there is I've just dragged that ball setter into the scene kind of off of camera where our matinee camera is that goes around our little starter maze there, and it's kind of off here on a little platform of its own, and then I made this camera that I've called pawn select camera, and you can see that it's facing the pawn. Alright, so I'm going to go to the level blueprint and show you what's going on. Now, reaching way back in your memory, one of the sequence of things that we do whenever the game starts is we create our main menu, we play the matinee, we set our little virtual joystick to invisible, and we started playing some music. Now here I've changed the volume to 0.2 because you wouldn't be able to hear my voice over the volume later. And I might add like a volume slider in the options later on, but most likely it'll be a on-off sort of thing. Okay, so some things that have changed in our blueprint is some stuff that I want to do. Obviously we add the camera, or the main menu UMG widget. We add that to the viewport, and then from there you'll see some binds like this one, switch camera. I have one over here that is reset matinee and update pawn. Alright, I think there was another one. No, the other one is on the UMG itself. Okay, so those are all, those event dispatchers or binds are bound to some custom events that I have here on the level blueprint. One is switch the camera. So whenever you hit the options button in the menu, it's going to call this event here, which is going to stop our matinee. It's going to get our little player controller, our pawn select camera, and then we're going to set our player control to the pawn select camera with a blend time of 0.5. So it doesn't just kind of blink there, it kind of moves over there in like 0.5 tick. From there, we're going to create our new menu, and that's going to be our deluxe, our options menu underscore deluxe. We're going to add that to the viewport. Then we're going to make sure that our events are bound for reset, the matinee, and updating the pawn. Okay, whenever reset matinee is called from the reset matinee event in our UMG, it's going to fire this event, which is going to start our matinee playing again. All right, the other thing is refreshing the pawn here in our level. And what that's going to do is our refresh pawn, we're going to have a cast to our options menu so we can pull in the material and the particle system and whether it's on or off. And what that'll do is it'll update our pawn in our viewport in real time. I want to show you how some of this stuff is done so it's not too confusing. Alright, so for switching camera, for example, you just right click, you can do add custom event. Yeah. Let's do add custom event, and we'll call this one switch example. And then all I did from there, and I'm going to show you this because I know it's easier to see as it's going along. We're going to get our matinee reference. An easy way to do that, by the way, is if you know where it's been in the scene, you can click it, and then in your level blueprint you can it's supposed to get a reference, create a reference to matinee actor, and then I'll go ahead and pull off of that and say stop because that's what we want to do. Alright, and then we would bind that to that, or tie that to that, and then from there we would take our get player controller and then a reference to our pawn select camera, which we know is over here. So I'll click that, right click, create a reference to pawn select camera, and then from there we're going to do our set view target with blend. So we can do set view, did I spell that wrong? Set view target with blend, oh. Set view target with blend off of the player controller. Our pawn select camera is the target. And then our blend time, you can put to whatever you want. Alright, and then you kind of know the rest from there. So I'll get rid of this and show you. We did a create off of our, after we set our camera, we did a create widget. That widget is our menu, options menu deluxe. We have a variable now in our level blueprint called options menu connection. From the previous videos you should know how to set that up. So we set that in the level blueprint, add it to viewport, cast it to our, and this is really important, we cast it to our options menu deluxe. And then we're going to stop here because we're going to have to go to our options menu deluxe in order to have some events to call on. Okay, the other thing we're doing is we refresh the pawn. Again, it's cast to our menu, options menu deluxe, and once it's cast there and your stuff, your variables are set up in that options menu, you'll be able to drag off and, like, you know, get ball, what do I call it, new ball material. So get new ball material, right? And then obviously we have our ball setter in our scene that you can select, get a reference to, or create a reference to, and then you can pull off of there and get our static mesh. Get static mesh 1, and from there you can pull off your set material node. And of course we've gotten our new ball material from our options menu that we can select, set our mesh material in the viewport to that. Same thing would be for the setting the particle system. So off of our ball setter we would get particle system 01, and you can name those whatever you want in your ball setter pawn. I just named them static mesh 1 ball system 1, or I'm sorry, particle system 1, and then off of there you would do a set template, and then from your deluxe menu you could get your particle type, feed that new one into your new particle template. And then of course the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to check to see if the particle is toggled on or off. And in the options menu, you know, particle on, particle off. And if it is true, we'll activate the particle system. That's the particle system. Activate. And if it's false, we will deactivate it. Don't need these nodes, they're already in there. So hopefully you followed that pretty well, because there's still a lot to go over, and I don't want this video to be too long. Alright, next thing is our Deluxe Options menu, and we'll start with back to main menu. When you click, well, let's look at the design real quick. This is a grid panel, and then in the grid panel I've got these different buttons. Thing about grids is wherever you want an item to be, you can select your row and column. So that's row 1, column 1. This one is row 2, column 1, row 3, column 1, and so on and so on. Okay. I also have select options as my message block default. And this is a variable because it's going to change based on things that you select in the menu. All right. So if you click back to main, I have a variable in here called apply clicked, which is defaulted to false. So and this is so you don't go back to the main menu without your options being saved. So if apply is clicked and it's true, then we're going to remove from parent. All right, quick side note real quick. Remove from parent is the old remove from viewport. Anywhere you had remove from viewport, if you upgrade to 4.6, you're going to have to change those nodes to remove from parent. All right, so we're going to remove the options menu and then re-add the main menu back in, add it to the viewport, and then we're going to call reset matinee. Now, reset matinee is a event dispatcher. An event dispatcher is needed in order for this UMG to communicate with the level blueprint. All right. So in order to add an event dispatcher, you just click event dispatcher and you add it. And we'll call this test t-tests. Good enough. And then I'll just drag it into and we'll call. All right, so anytime that you want to call an event on the level blueprint from here, it's got to be done through an event dispatcher. And for example, this one is calling reset matinee. Let's go back to our level blueprint real quick. Now remember, whenever we went through all of this, whenever you click options, it creates the options menu, changes your camera, all that kind of good stuff. We casted deluxe. menu, options menu deluxe, and then we do this sequence where we bind to reset matinee and update pawn, because we're going to be calling those two events. So after the good cast to options menu deluxe, you can pull off of there, and you can do a type in the name of the event, and you can bind the event. So this one, in this case, reset matinee, right? Now remember, we created a custom event here called reset matinee, and what that does is it starts to play again. So what you do on your event binds is whenever, since this event is bound to our options menu deluxe, whenever it's called in options menu deluxe, we're going to call this event. So you just wire the event nodes to your custom event in your level blueprint to the event node in your event bind from the UMG. And then your obviously your execute node off of that will go back into playing our matinee. Likewise, whenever we have the switch camera event, that's also back to our options menu deluxe, an event. Let me get rid of this t-test. The camera switch is somewhere else that I'll have to get to you on. Alright, so reset matinee is called here, and then update pawn events are my two bound events to the level blueprint. Okay, those are both tied to options menu. It is the main menu that has the camera switch, so I'll show you that real quick. Main menu. When the options button is clicked, the main menu is removed from viewport, and then we do a call camera, call switch camera, which is, you can see over here in our event dispatcher. Okay. Alright, so whenever we call that switch camera, it adds, besides switching the camera, that's when it adds our options menu. Alright, back to options menu. A couple other things on whenever you hit the main menu button. Again, if you have not hit apply, I have a message block variable, which is this message block. It's a variable, right? So it's going to show up in our variable list right here, message block. And if you haven't clicked apply, it'll say options not saved, click apply, or click main menu again to proceed without saving, which you can do, because what it'll do is it'll go ahead right after this is fired, it's going to set apply clicked to true, and so next time you hit back to main menu, the main menu button, it'll see that as true. It'll go ahead and remove the options menu and then add the main menu back in, and it'll call our reset matinee in our level blueprint, and the matinee will start all over again. All right. Reset button hadn't changed to reset all data from last time, so the only thing that's changed is remove from parent, and then the are you sure menu will pop up, and that hasn't changed. Particles on or off. Whenever you click the particle on or off, it'll flip-flop between true and not true. So whenever it sets to, and it's on by default, by the way, and that is a variable on this menu, it is set to default on. So if you click that, it'll set particles to off, and it'll, in your little message block, say particles to off. If you set it back again to true, particles are on. So it'll tell you. And then after that, it's going to call this update pawn, which goes back to our level menu, update pawn, is tied to refresh the pawn, right? And so what that does is, like we went through before, it's cast to the options menu, it sets the material, sets the particle, and sets activate or deactivate of the particle, whether or not it's on or off. All right. The next after that is going to be setting the themes. Now these are the different buttons on the side, right? And they're all going to be the same. They're all going to set the ball material, which you can pull down and find the ball material and set. It'll set some text to the message block saying which theme that you've selected. It'll set the particle type based on that theme that you've selected, and again call the update pawn, which is on the level blueprint, and it updates your pawn. After that, whenever you click applied, now this is where the meat happens, because whenever you play your game, you want the ball pawn to have the material and the particle that you've selected in this options menu. So it's got to save that to our save game. So here we go. We're going to load our game. We're going to set our connection. This is just like all that stuff before. You've seen it in my other videos. But this time we're going to save our new ball material, whether the particles are on and off, and our particle type. It's going to save it to our game slot. In the message block it'll say options applied successfully, and then it'll set our applied variable to true, meaning whenever we hit our main menu button, it'll see that as true and then go straight back to the main menu. I think it's worth noting right about now that on our save game, which is here, I have added a new ball mesh, particles on, boolean, ball material, and particle. So those are added to the save game, and that's what's set whenever you apply your changes. So whenever you play your game, it pulls up the right values for your ball pawn that we'll look at right now. Whenever you start the level, it's going to either activate or deactivate the particle system based on what's in the save game. I know this is a long video. Thanks for sticking with me. Probably try to get a little deeper into it at some point in time. But for right now, that's it, because band practice is about to start, and my brother's here. He's the guitarist, and he's looking at me funny. So thanks for watching. Catch you next time whenever we go over putting this on the iPad and testing it out, which was another long and grueling process that I'm sure I'll have another long and grueling video. Thanks again.